Okay. So this is lab 5. Is that right? Yeah, that's lab 5. Does that make sense? It's Tuesday. Yeah. It's the Monday, Wednesday where we missed a lab, but not on Tuesday, Thursday. Okay. So it's lab 5 and homework 3. Homework 3 is there's 2 articles. Pick one and write me 4 sentences. It's sort of fairly easy. Read either one. There it is. Everybody's here now in one way or the other. Okay. So the homework 3 is to read one of these and write me a few sentences, convince me you read it. Not much to either of these, so that should be easy. And then a program, but this program is to go back to lab 3, where in lab 3 it was the potato. And it wasn't lab 4 with the potato, it was lab 3 with the potato. And lab 3 with the potato was the radio buttons, right? So there was a size of the potato, and then there were some radio buttons for what topping you wanted. And now you're going to go back and redo that lab, but you're going to have the radio buttons added dynamically. And so when I show you this example of the restaurant calculator where I'm adding the tips dynamically, that should tell you how to do this. And there's a lot of this program that I didn't have to touch. And hopefully that will be the same for you. And then we're going to start talking about SeekBars. But first, are there questions? Seems to be no. Okay. I know that I give a lot of work. That means I have a lot of grading, and I'm already behind on it. So I'm behind on my work, so I'm understanding when you are behind on your work. But I purposely give a lot of work because if you do that work, then you'll learn what you're supposed to learn. When people sort of have you go along for a half a semester and give you just a midterm, and all of a sudden realize that you don't know what you haven't learned what you're supposed to have learned, that's sort of as much their fault as your fault. So, but if you do all my labs, you will be ready for my test, because my test is effectively just a slightly different lab. Okay. And people have been getting in touch with me by sending me, some people sent me screen captures of error messages. Do you know what this is about? Some people have sent me the actual code. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And I've Zoomed with people and I've met with people live. So there are all sorts of ways for us to, get you through any troubles you're having. So, all right. This is the radio button, the restaurant calculator with radio buttons, with the radio buttons generated dynamically. A, Control C. I'm going to come here to the activity main. Place this all. So I just happen to have whatever it is. This is just my in-class project that I just keep overwriting for whatever I'm doing at this particular second. And then main activity. and I copy everything but the package there. And I'm going to paste in everything but the package. Okay. And I'm going to save it and run it, but you know what this looks like. It's the restaurant calculator where they say, here's what the bill was. And then they have some radio buttons for some tip percentages. And then they're going to enter the bill, use a radio button to click to choose a tip percentage, and then figure out the tip and the total. It pops up. And the only difference is in design. So the difference is in what the user sees. The user is supposed to see the same thing they saw before. The new thing, there it is. Okay, so this here's just a hint. So that 25 is not really there. And then I'll say it was 67.89, and I'll pay 20%. That's the standard these days. And then I'll click the button, and there it is. And if I change my mind to 15%, it clears it out. And if the bill was different, it also clears it out. So it does what it did before. Here's the activity main. There's a text that's saying that here's where you enter the bill amount. And here's the edit text for the bill amount. And here's the radio group for the RG tip. And here's a text view in the radio group that's telling me that this is for the tip. But there are no radio buttons in the radio group. That's the difference this time. They're going to be generated dynamically in code. So right now, the radio group is empty. There's a button that says calculate. And then there's a text view for the tip amount, not as a percentage, but as a dollar amount. And then there's a text view for the total amount, again, $1. Okay. So in terms of design, it's what it was before, except I stripped out the radio buttons. I don't know if I had a text view in my radio group before, but I put it in there this time. What is the main activity? So there's got to be a little bit more in the main activity now, because those radio buttons were generated by code, by what I'm saying dynamically. I have to know what tips I'm going to allow. And so I have a tip underscore amounts array, and that's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. I'm doing my connecting to the interface as usual. That didn't change. I have my usual variables to do my calculation. That didn't change. Oh, here's the new part. Okay. I'm looping over the tip amounts array. And so as I loop over it, item is 5, and then it's 10, and then it's 15, and I'm looping through the array. I'm making a new radio button. I'm instantiating a radio button. So here's my radio button class, and then I have to provide it the constructor for the radio button class once at least one argument, and that is the context, and I'm saying this. Hopefully this works for you. Every once in a while this doesn't work, and then you try application context, or you try base context. Okay. I want to set the text of the radio button to be the 5, the 10, the 15, and 20 with a % sign after it. Previously, I gave those radio buttons tags, and I'm going to use tags again. I'm going to set the tag to be the number divided by 100. So it'll be 0.2, or sorry, yeah, for 5% it'll be 0.05, for 10% it'll be 0.1. And then here I am. Now you got to pay attention here. remember I use my prefixes to tell me what kind of a thing it is. So RG is a radio group and RB is a radio button. And so I'm adding to the radio group, I'm adding a view, and I'm adding the radio button I just made above. So if you look at that line too fast, it doesn't make sense, but you gotta pay attention to RG and RB, radio group, radio button. Radio group existed in design and I made a connection to it above, and RB is this new thing I've just generated dynamically. That's the new part. That I gutted out the design, I gutted out the radio buttons in the design, but left the radio group. Here I am putting them back in dynamically. And then this part is the same as it was before. When I'm working with radio buttons, I work mostly with the radio group. And I didn't change the radio group. I just changed what was in the radio group. So long as I set it up, especially with my tag, remember I was working with the tag, so I must have the tags because that's how this functions. Right here, I'm getting the tip. I'm taking the particular radio button the user chose, I'm taking its tag, I convert it to a string and then to a double. So if I didn't do the tag part, I'd be, screwed, it wouldn't work. But I did do the tag part, so it will work. So this is all what we talked about before. We're trying because they might not have entered a number into the bill box. We're asking if the index was a -1 because they might not have chosen a radio button. And then we're doing the calculation. We have our, what if they changed the text amount? And we had our, what if they changed the radio button within the radio group? But it's a radio group event. Again, we worked with mostly with the radio group. And so we could bring the radio buttons in dynamically without too much trouble. So then, again, that's what you're going to do for homework. You're going to take your lab 3, the potato with radio buttons, and you're going to make it the potato with dynamic radio buttons. And hopefully, if you've set up well, you won't have to do much. Now, typically, a view, a widget has to be constrained. And usually, if you're adding something dynamically to the interface, you have to worry about where is it on the interface. But we're adding it specifically to the radio group, and the radio buttons within the radio group do not have to be constrained. The radio group is what we call, by default, a vertical layout. And so just each item comes one under the other. So there was a text view already there. And then as I add a radio button, it's underneath. And I add another radio button, and it's underneath that, and so on. If I were adding other things, fancier things, and not putting them in something like a radio group, then I might have to worry about their constraints. And you can do that. I have the tag, I assign the text property, I assign the tag property. I could assign constraint properties. They're more complex or a little harder to do, but we could do it. Yes.
Do you like to come in a picture possible?
We could add an image view, and we could assign an image to the image view. So when you're talking about pictures, there are two things. One, the element or the view, which is called in Android an image view. So there's the thing that will hold a picture. So we can do that dynamically. That's sort of analogous to what we're doing here. We're adding some kind of a widget that wasn't there to the interface. But you can also, and the second one is easier, have an image view and just change its image. And we will be doing that Thursday. So the image, to add an image view, would be a little bit harder because it would need to be constrained. But to have an image view and to change its image, it's not trivial, but it's easier. And we'll be doing it Thursday. All right. Anything else? Okay. So let's get this Seekbar. A Seekbar is also, I'm going to sometimes call it a slider. There'll be a bar, there'll be some sort of knob on the bar, and then the user will be able to move that bar back and forth, and we'll somehow get some value out of that. Okay, so I have here 3 files. I have an activity main, the XML, normal, and I have the main activity.kt, normal, and I have a build Gradle. So I must have done something to the Gradle. All right, kill the old ones. Let's look at the Gradle. And then let's look at the Gradle that I have for this project I already have open. So here's the build Gradle module. And our normal min SDK is, I don't know, like a 16. Like if I open up a hello world, remember the SDK is the software development kit. It's sort of, we'll more or less call it the version. And the minimum is target SDK is like, where do we think we're currently working? I wrote this at home. I wrote this on this computer. Well, it's not home, but my computer. And my computer understands 31, whereas these lab computers, if you remember, don't understand 31. We got to go back to 30. But I had a different problem here in that I'm using a property. I'm going to use the minimum property of the Seekbar. I'm going to allow the minimum. I'm not going to assume it starts at 0. I'm actually going to start it at -15 for the problem I'm interested in. And so when I use the minimum, I got some complaints. Oh, not all the old SDKs understood that attribute. So I updated it. And so it's told me to change it to 26, so I did. So this program's not going to work quite right on very old phones. Okay. How many phones? I don't know. I'd have to look. I'd have to like do some investigating to see how far back this goes. Okay. So I've already changed the Gradle, so I'm not going to change the Gradle again. I've already did that. Okay. Here's my activity main. I'm going to copy that. Control A, Control C. I'm going to copy that over. And then I'm going to go to the main activity. Main activity here. And this is just a single Seekbar, so it's pretty short. And I don't want the package. I don't want to copy the package. I do want to copy everything else. Paste. There we go. Save it. Let me stop it and run it so you can see what it is. But again, a Seekbar is just this bar, obviously, and then there's something on the bar that the user can interact with and slide one way or the other. That's why I call it a slider. And that allows you to change a value. So they're not going to be able to change a number. It's when you have a number, typically when you have an integer number, and then you're changing it in some range. So you don't have to worry about the user going outside of the range, because they're limited by the slider. Did it pop up? So here's my slider. I gave it some label, some text view that says level 1. Here's the slider. with the little red, the green, red, what the hell? The little green circle here is that knob, what I've been calling a knob. And then I can move it back and get some negative numbers or get some positive numbers. I'm going from -15 up to +15. That choice was based on the lab we're going to eventually do, where we're going to make an equalizer interface, and they seem to run from -15 to 15. Okay, so how did we make that? Okay, so here, let's start with the interface, the activity_main XML. Here's the text view, which is pretty much just a label. It is the label for the Seekbar. It's just telling me what that Seekbar controls. It controls level 1, whatever that means. And it's constrained, and that's that. Okay. I've been getting, when I go to design, I get these little error messages. And some of them have been telling me some of my old programs use left and they want me to use start, and then they want me to use start and left because there's old code and new code, and the new code wants left and the new code wants start and the old code wants left. And so it yells at me both. If I do one, it wants me to do both. It also wants me to hard code these numbers, level 1 or something like that. And I just say, screw you, I'm not gonna do that. It's like good coding practice if you're going to reuse a string. If a certain string appears over and over again, then it makes sense to make it a constant. I'm not really going to call anything else level 1. So I don't know that it really makes sense here. And also, if I did say, yes, okay, make that string level 1, then I'd have to give you more files for you to reconstruct the project. And I like to minimize the number of files I have to send you. If I touch the Gradle, I want to send you the Gradle. If when we got values, I sent you the values, but I don't want on every project where I'm, have to send you values. And if I do this, I'd have to send you the values, and I don't want to do it. So I'm going to ignore that. But if you see red, you really ought to fix it. If you see yellow, it's a caution, and you decide what level of caution you're willing to live with. So I will, if I see the lefts and the starts, I will say, fix that. If it's telling me about this, I have hard-coded a string, I say, I'm going to leave it that way. Don't touch my hard-coded strings, I like them. Okay. So that's layout. So some kind of label, this new thing, a Seekbar, another label. The first label is always going to say level 1. The second label is going to reflect the value of the slider of the Seekbar. Let's go over to code. Okay. I have my connections from interface to code. The second text view, the one that changes, and the Seekbar. I use my prefix SB and TV. I like to sort of know what kind of item I'm dealing with. So when I'm over here in code, if I follow my scheme, then I know what that is without going back all the way over, and I don't have to open activity_main XML and look for the thing with this ID. I'll know it's a Seekbar because I'm using this convention, but it is just a convention. You don't have to do it. But if I'm working with you and I'm confused, I can't immediately debug your program, then I'm probably going to change these because they help me understand what's going on in debug. So if you're good and you don't like this, then you don't have to do it. But if you need my help, I may force you into it just because it makes me understand what's going on. All right, here is the Seekbar. It's a bit like a text change in that there are 3 events. or three, sorry, there's one event changing the Seekbar that you're listening for, but there are three methods. And I usually call them the before, the during, and the after. So here is the, when you start, you may need to remember something when you start in case there's some kind of failure, you need to go back, or you're trying to figure out a difference or whatever the hell. For some reason, you might want to do something when you start. I didn't want to do anything when I start, so I just left it blank, but I did have it. There's when you finish. I sometimes report out something when I finish. You've got to pay attention to, and then on progress is as it's changing. And I am changing the text in the text view to reflect the I, which is the progress, what they call the progress, the value of the Seekbar. You've got to make sure you, in the on progress change, you've got to make sure you don't do anything that takes a lot of time. Because they can drag this across the Seekbar very quickly. And so they're sort of causing event after event after event. I can slide from positive 15 down to minus 15. What did I probably just caused about 31 events or something like that, or maybe 30 events. As I went from 15 to 14, that was a change. 14 to 13, that was a change. Then I can also click, that's like a one change, but a bigger change. But if they're actually sliding the slide bar, that's a lot of changes that of continuous, not semi quasi continuous changes. So if you do anything too slow here, it can clog up your memory or take a lot of time. If I put a toast in here, toasts take a certain amount of time, and the person probably be seeing a toast from the first or second change, and those toasts would just keep coming up and coming up and coming up, and the person would forget what they had done. So a toast or something like that is better for here when it's done. Okay, this is relatively fast, updating the I, so I'm doing that in while it changes. Again, but we had that same idea sort of roughly with the text change. There was a before, a during, and an after, and similar things here. Okay, that is one Seekbar. Any questions about one Seekbar? All right, I'm going to go to 3 Seekbars. Skip right over 2 and go to 3. All right, all right, all right. Close you. Close you. So let me tell you what you're going to do so you make sure you're paying attention to the things you need to pay attention to. You're going to make an interface for an equalizer. Don't worry that these are vertical. You can make yours horizontal. But you're going to have, I'm going to ask you for at least 6 Seekbars. And they should have some label. And then they should have another label that tells you the value. So yours is probably going to look more like, word open, here's a new word. Snip, no, snip. I use snip to draw. Yours is probably going to look like something like this, a 30, a 3, or whatever it was, and here's the Seekbar, and here's some number, and that is, I don't know, an 8. So this never changes. This changes if they change the Seekbar, so that corresponds to that position. And then there's some 16 or something, and that was, I don't know, down here, and so that's a minus 10 or something. So these will change depending on where the knob is. This over here is just some kind of static label. And you're supposed to have at least 6 of them. Okay. So that is the lab. So now I showed you how to do one Seekbar. And you can do, I'm allowing it. I made it 6 because I want to try to move as many of you as possible away from this. But if you just made 6 independent SeekBars and got the first one working and then copied the code down and wrote it all 6 times, that's not a good way to do it, but that's an acceptable way to do it. I won't take off points, so I'll just nod and say, okay, you're being stubborn, but okay. So now I want to show you this SeekBar that changes the red, the green, and the blue of some color. So this has 3 SeekBars, and I'm going to treat them as a group. And I'm going to treat them as a group in 2 different ways. Okay. So I'm trying to get you to, with the lab, or sorry, the homework of the redo with the radio buttons, you have to work with the radio group, but you knew that. So there's some looping there and some, you can't get it, you can't deal with them individually there. But here, if you insisted on it, it would be just, there we go. Okay, so here we are. I don't have the Gradle here because I didn't need the Gradle here. The minimum here is a 0, and that was the assumed default in the past, and so it doesn't need the change in the Gradle because I'm not using the minimum, because the minimum is assumed to be 0, and that's what I needed here. Control A. So this one has more backward compatibility than the older one. Okay. And this is what? There's my activity layout in code. Okay, there's my new activity layout. Main activity. Main activity. I don't want package, everything but the package, copy. And everything but the package. Let's save it. Stop it and run it. And this is going to be colors on computers are usually controlled by RGB, the amount of red, the amount of blue, the amount of green, the amount of blue, RGB, red, green, blue. And so I'm going to have and the values go between 0 and 255 because they use 8 bits for every color. So that's 256 possibilities. And so the values are 0 to 255. So my SeekBars are going to go from 0 to 255. I'm going to have 1 for red, 1 for green, 1 for blue, and then I'm going to control a color. There it is right now on 255.00, which is red, very bright red. If I reduce the red, I get a darker red. I'm going to add some green. I get this sort of orange. If I add a lot, I'm very green. And then here's my blue. You see it getting blue if I add lots of blue, purpley because I had enough red, but now I've reduced the blue, reduce the red, and okay, you get the idea. All right, so I have one big text view that shows my color. I have a Seekbar and a text view for the red, a Seekbar and a text view for the green, a Seekbar and a text view for the blue. And I've labeled them systematically. This is going to help me treat them in a loop of SB_0, TV_0, SB_1, TV_1. Okay. Let's go over to the main activity. Okay. So this is the first time I think that I'm ever going to have Kotlin code outside of onCreate. So when we set up the Hello World project, it creates this onCreate for us. It makes this main activity. It does some imports. It does the package. Doesn't do all the imports, but some of the imports. And I think this might be the first time I've had something here. Because I'm going to have something outside of the onCreate. Here's the end of my onCreate. I'm going to add a listener inside onCreate, but the handler, the method that's going to handle the change, I have outside of onCreate. If I have things outside of onCreate and I want them to understand something, then I must declare that thing such that it's available to onCreate and available to the stuff that's outside of onCreate. It's sort of a basic sort of scope thing. Usually when I do, this is just an integer array, so that's fine and simple. Usually when I do this TV color thing, that gets associated with the find view by ID. You can tell I mean it, that you can tell that I think it's a text view because I started off with TV. And I usually end up, those lines usually end up something like this with find view down there. But I can't do that here. I'm outside onCreate. I don't know about the interface yet. So I can't connect it to the interface side because the interface side doesn't exist yet. I'm just saying I'm going to have a text view. I don't connect it to anything yet, I can't. But once I have a text view, things outside of onCreate are allowed to understand it and access it. Is that okay? You guys understand about scope? I want the variable to be, I want this thing to be accessible in onCreate and elsewhere, but I can't initialize it until onCreate. So, but it insisted that it insisted it was something even before it could be something, so it's null. And that little question mark there says that this thing can be null. And usually these things are a val, if you remember. But now it's starting off as null, and then I'm making it something else. So it's not a val. It's not once I make it, it's done. I'm making it null, then I'm making it something else. I'm changing it. Okay. Now I'm in onCreate. I'm looping through. I have indices. Remember, I had SB_0, SB_1, SB_2. I'm looping through a range of 0, 1, 2. My counter is I. I'm constructing what I call in design my ID. Once we get over to Kotlin, they start calling that a name. I don't know why they're so confusing about that, but they are. So when you're in design, you call it an ID. And then you get over to Kotlin and they call something else an ID. They behind the scenes, they assign all your things long numbers. So long is like more than an integer, more bits than an integer. They assign all of them longs, and when they talk about ID over here, they mean the long, not the little string that you wrote. Okay, but I still called it my ID because I don't know. That's what when I made it in design, I called it an ID. Okay. So now I'm looking for what they call the ID. So I'm taking my name and going to the set of IDs and looking for it within the context of the package. We've done some of this before. And then I'm getting the Seekbar, and then I'm assigning the Seekbar a listener. I'm not doing everything. Usually I do everything right away. Here's the Seekbar, here's the listener, and then here are the methods for the listener. I'm just saying right now that I'm going to have a listener, and then my listener is called my listener. So I'm sort of deferring. I'm going to delay this definition of my listener. And here I am changing the, establishing the connection. I'm in onCreate now, so I can finally establish the connection between the interface and the code for TV color. Okay, so my handler of listening for the Seekbar, I have outside. Here it is. So this is why I had something outside of onCreate. Here it is. It's this handler for the listening. All right. There are 3 functions for SeekBars, the progress. I'm doing a lot on the progress. When I start, I'm not doing anything when I start. And when I end, I'm doing something with a toast. I'm just to show that I can. Okay. What do I want to happen when I slide a Seekbar? I want the number of that Seekbar to change, and I want the color to change. Okay. So I have to figure out which text view corresponds to this Seekbar. So this is version 1. The Seekbars were called SB_0, and then there was a text view, TV_0. All right. So now I'm working backwards. I have the Seekbar. I'm finding its name. So remember the ID, when I'm in code, what they call ID, and this is them calling it ID, they mean some long. And I'm getting the name. So I'm getting SB0, SB1, SB2, whichever one it happened to be. I am splitting that. I'm using this underscore as the delimiter, and I'm splitting it. And I have all sorts of crazy crap here with my splitting, which I just probably stole from somewhere. And then here's me taking parts. So I broke SB_0, I broke it into parts. The 0 is the last part. There was some weird stuff can happen sometimes. Like you think it's just going to be SB_0, and then sometimes you get something la 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 SB0. And so that's why I'm being sort of extra cautious here and not just assuming that this is part number 1. You know, if it comes simply as SB_0, then there's part 1 and there's part 2. But it's harder if I get the other crap, which I sometimes have seen. So I'm working with this as the sort of the last part. The last part of parts is the number, and that is the index of my array, and the I is the progress. Does that make any sense to anybody? Does anybody want me to say it again, or just confuse them another time? All right. I have what I call IDs, but what they call names. When I design the interface, I have SB0, SB_1, SB_2, and I have the text views named similarly, TV_0, TV_1, TV_2. So this line up here gets me something. It may be SB0 or maybe some long crap and then SB_0. When I split, I say, use this as a divider, use it as what we call a delimiter, and break it up into pieces. And then I want this last piece. So here is me saying the last parts is what I made when I broke it up. Parts, however big it is, size is how big it is. The last index is size -1. So this is the last index. So this is the last thing in parts, which is a number. So it's going to be 0 or 1 or 2. I had to turn it into an integer because when I break up a string, it assumes it's strings. So I had to force it to be an integer. And then this is my array, remember, of my red, my green, my blue. And the I is from the event, and the I is the value the user chose. So I'm setting whichever Seekbar the person scrolled on is, I have to find the corresponding element of my array and update that. That's me updating my array. Now I have to update the text view. So here's me doing the reverse of what I just did, taking TV underscore and that number, and I'm constructing the name of the text view. I deconstructed the name of the Seekbar. Now I'm constructing the name of the text view. And then I'm getting the resource from its name. And then here I am getting the text view, and then here I am setting its text. So the person picks one of the Seekbars and moves it. I have to update my array. I have to update the corresponding text view, and then this is me changing the color. That's the actually easy one because I'm going to just do it with all three parts. Instead of figuring out what part changed for the color, I'm just going to use all three parts and change the color. That's a lot of, that's a lot. I'm going from names to IDs and IDs to names and parsing and changing three different things. If you get used to this, like if this kind of thing ever comes up again, and it will, then this is one way of handling it. And if you sort of get your head around this, then you can, all those situations that come up, you can sort of come back. Oh, when did we do that? The first time we did it was in the Seekbar thingy. I find it, I do it, it works. Isn't that great? I'm going to do it a different way in a minute, but this is one way to do it. And the hard part, the hard part is the Seekbar knows its value, but I had an array to update and a text view to update. That was the hard part, because now I had to get from the Seekbar to its corresponding text view. I'm going to do it a different way, but I'm also going to be slightly more clever in the next version, in that one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the tag. Remember, we have the secret compartment, the tag, the secret compartment, in the secret compartment of the Seekbar in the next time around. And I could have taken advantage of it here, but I didn't. I put in 0, 1, 2. So I had access. Remember, the tag is the secret compartment. Put in there what's useful to you. What's useful to me is the 0, 1, 2. That's hell. All this crazy work up here was for me to get the 0, the 1, or the 2. Life would have been easier if I put it in the tag. And I get smarter in the next version and I put it in the tag, but I didn't put in the tag here. That allows me to use the tag for something else, but I didn't. I'm not, but I could have. I'm rambling. Okay. Here's when I stop. I figure out which Seekbar it is, and then I'm just toasting out the name of the Seekbar for no good reason other than to show you I can. Okay. So this is just sort of, you might want to do something when you stop. So I'm doing something when I stop just because. These are the things I really wanted to do here. The hard part is to extract the 0, the 1, the 2. This is our way. I'm going to show you another way. Can I do what? Oh, the toast. I'm doing it when I stop, when the person stops moving. I decided to toast the name of the Seekbar. Just to show you I can.
What is toast do?
Oh, toast is it's not quite a pop-up. It's semi like an alert in Java. So let me, is this the right one? Yes. I think, or is this the old one? I don't know. I just started talking about it or if I actually ran it. This one. I think, okay. I'm moving and then I stop and there's my toast. Do you see it at the bottom?
Yeah. Oh.
That's a toast. I was working with somebody yesterday and he had toasts in, I don't know, lab 2 or something, or lab 3, and we just were not getting his toast to toast. So this is usually in a toast I write here this, and then there are other things. You can say base context, application context, get application context. There are different ways to try to get this context to work. But usually I just put this here and it works. It may be harder here because I'm not in the onCreate. So I might have needed something fancy. I may have needed something fancier, or maybe I was just showing people options. I'd have to go back and try this and see if it fails. If you ask me to, I will, but if you don't ask me to, I don't like failing. He's asking me to fail. Okay, that's good. That's nice of you. Anything on this version before I flip to version? The last version, okay. One last version, parent-child version. Here, I was using something that required a more recent Gradle, so that's why I sent you a Gradle. It needed 24. I already edited the Gradle earlier in the day. Here's my text, my main. I don't know if this is any different or not, but I'll just go through the process I usually go through. And this is the same. I think the activity main is actually the same. I think it's just the code that's different. Package, paste, save. Okay. It is the same. I think there's a text view for the color, Seekbar text view, Seekbar text view, Seekbar text view, same layout. Activity. Here's me defining the two things outside of onCreate again. I changed the array. Here's me looping through the range 0, 1, 2. I'm creating the Seekbar. Again, that is, as far as code is concerned, they're going to call it a name. They're returning and they're what they call the ID. From the ID, I get the Seekbar. I add the listener's defined below. So you can, everything before this Seekbar example, we were defining the actual handler of the event right away. This time we sort of delayed it and put it in another place. I'm setting the progress of the Seekbar. So I'm trying to make the progress. I think I just relied on a coordination before, but now I'm actually using my array to set the progress of my Seekbars. And animate false means when I change the progress here on the Seekbar, do I want to sort of raise an event like the user did it? And I'm saying no. I don't want you to act like the user did it. I'm just assigning the value. I could act like the user did it. And what you have to watch sometimes is you can set yourself up in a crazy infinite loop. So if you in code are pretending like you're a user, but then as you have other code that responds to your user, you just have to be careful not to end up in an infinite loop. I don't think I would here, but I'm just very leery of it because I've been in those infinite loops. So I usually just say false here. Here's me getting the text view, getting the ID, getting the text view, setting its text. So I'm looping through based on that array, and I'm adding a listener to the SeekBars, and I'm setting their progress, and I'm setting the text of the text views. That's basically the same loop as before. I think I did a little bit more here because I think I just set the text to whatever I had, whereas right now I'm using the values that I see above. And here's me changing the color of the text view. Okay. The bigger difference is going to be how I do the correspondence between the Seekbar and the text view. I'm going to work with a parent and a child. All right, let me go back here to this activity main and point out something that's very important. I have this constraint layout that is going to be the parent. I have this big text view up at the top. Then I have a Seekbar, and the text view that corresponds to the Seekbar are right after one another. I'm going to rely on that. The Seekbar for green is followed by the text view for green. I can rearrange the order of these elements in the XML and still have the layout look the same. But the parent-child relationship depends on how this thing is typed out. Not the way it looks, but the way it's typed. And I have it typed with this systematic way. And so what I'm going to do is say, hey, Seekbar, who's your parent? The constraint layout. Then I'm going to say, what's your position in the layout? Oh, that text view was 0. The first Seekbar was 1. The first text view was 2. Then this Seekbar is 3. Oh, I'm a 3. Was that right, or did I skip a number? I don't know. 0, 1, 2, 3. This should be 3, right? And then I'm going to say, get me number 4. And then I'm going to know it's a text view. So I'm going to work with the child-parent relationship. Okay. And then I don't have to do all that parsing that was like making your head spin just a minute ago. So here I am in the listener. I have my Seekbar, and I say, who's your parent? And then I say, what is the index of the child and the parent? So my layout is the parent, Seekbar is the child. What's the position? Then I say, go get the child with 1 more than the index. That was the corresponding text view. I always made the text view after the Seekbar. And then I changed its text. And then I put in the tags. Oh, I did make a change. I forgot about that. I did make a change to the, where the hell is my scroller? There it is. Here's a tag. I added to the Seekbar, here's my scroll. To the Seekbar, I added a tag, which was that index, which made my life easier, which I should have done before, but I didn't. So here I got the association between Seekbar and text view playing with parent and child. And here I got the position of the array by being smarter about using a tag. Here had some other way of doing something and I commented out because it was more cumbersome. And here I'm updating the color. And the color is easy because it's all of the elements of the array, so I don't have to worry about which one for changing the color. And I didn't do anything on stop tracking. Okay, so again, that's just a different way, parent-child way of relating Seekbar to TextView, relying on the fact that they're next to each other. Questions for the recording? No, I will stop recording.